Hello, hello, hello. Ooh, so we're just going and starting. I don't have a ton of time, which is why I usually leave like 5 minutes to do a thing, but I guess I'm only going like. I guess I'm going shorter today. So, hmm, I guess we can go ahead and talk about things or whatnot. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized. Like I said, I don't have a ton of time to do this. Hopefully, people come by because unfortunately, Mahler streamed when I wanted to stream, so that sucks. Actually, I think I'm gonna post the link to the thing. Hold on, and one more Discordio. One moment. Oh shit. Yeah, 1 second. We're working on it. We're working on it. Here we go. Okay, so it seems like not a lot of people are here today. Not that there's any ever a lot of people, but that's okay. So anyway, today I really want to focus on talking clearly and loudly. I've gotten some criticism that I don't talk loud enough or my mic isn't high enough. So if you are in the chat, if you're lurking or whatever, please let me know if my audio is too low. But with no one in the chat, there's no reason to, you know, not start. So, introduction. Oh, this will be a different format to last time. I'm still testing out what kind of format I want to do. But to give a clearer picture of the studies and papers I researched for each topic, I'm just going to read my paper for the most part. So, yeah, but my paper's not done. There's two sections that are incomplete. So, when I upload, when this goes up and it's not live anymore, there might be a day or two for the paper to be finished because this will help me fill out the discussion, at least thought wise, and then I could post it. Anyway, thank you all for showing up, whether you show up now or a little bit later. I appreciate the time, and let's go ahead and begin. So, introduction. Anyone who has been to a public gym has seen individuals training with headphones, as well as probably heard music playing over the facility's stereo system. While this has been criticized for making training easier by some, it is no secret that music individuals can help individuals push through a difficult training session or motivate an individual to push harder. That being said, during the warm up, hold on. During the warm up of most sporting events, music is playing. Players will often listen to songs that prepare them psychologically for the competition before said competition begins. In many cases, an athlete will grow anxious when their phone dies before competition and they can't listen to their preferred music. The question is, however, does music actually make a difference in physical performance, or are these boosts in ability just a byproduct of a psychological effect? Basically, as the introduction said, we all see people use headphones and listen to music while they work out or run or whatever. And I wanted to look at, does this make an actual effect on performance? And we'll find that out. For this review, free articles on PubMed were collected and reviewed using the keywords music and sports performance, as well as examining related articles for each to expand the pool of studies. 10 out of the 13 papers that I found were analyzed, and three of those 13 were narrative reviews that did not lend themselves to this topic. Basically, there are two systematic and meta-analyses at the in this, but a narrative review isn't super helpful all the time. If I have multiple of them, I will use them, but I try to go for meta-analyses, systematic reviews. A literature review is fine. That's basically what this is, but yeah, I don't want to use a narrative review. Not too many of them anyway. Yeah. Whew. Yep. Anyway, so we shall go ahead and move on to. No, actually, I want to talk about this. So when it comes to researching topics, oftentimes you want to keep track of what keywords you're using. That way, if people want to know, you can always tell them the keywords you used. And hopefully, if you did it right, they can tell you didn't cherry pick. Because that is a common criticism when you use a limited amount of research, is you cherry picked. Which cherry picking is basically when you have a pile of evidence and you only pick evidence that supports your claim. Or supports a claim. Now, sometimes it can be easy to cherry pick, especially if you're like, oh, okay, well, what about this? And, that does happen. But typically, if you want to avoid cherry picking, you want to use a meta-analysis, you want to use systematic reviews, or you want to pick a litany of studies to cite whatever thing you're citing. It's very important. It's super helpful. But essentially, that's what you want to do. Moving on. So, at this point, we are going to start reviewing some of the studies. Basically, I will read the short summary I've written. And so I'm going to break this down in about threes. So I will read the first three, give a quick debrief. Next three, quick debrief. Last four, since it's 10, quick debrief. So let's go ahead and begin. Castaneda Barbaro. By the way, sorry if any of you, I doubt any of you will watch this, but if any of you researchers end up watching this, just know if I mispronounce your name, that's not my fault. I mean, it is, but I didn't mean to. Anyway, Castaneda Barbaro et al. In 2020 found that in the studies they had reviewed, the difference between subjects listening to music and not listening to music in the Wingate Anaerobic Test Performance, or WANT, so that's capital W, capital A, lowercase n, capital T. The AN is anaerobic, so Wingate, W, anaerobic, so AN, and then T is test. An assessment that requires a maximal effort of 30 seconds on an ergometer was not significant, and a conclusion that music improves physical performance could not be made at this time. The researchers used 45 studies in their meta-analysis while working through their inclusion and exclusion criteria of 295 collected studies. So basically, 45 of the 295 studies that vaguely reference the topic were they met all the criteria to be included. So you have this big pool and you narrow it down to a smaller pool that's more manageable and relevant. Wang and colleagues found that there is no physiological benefit to listening to music on a participant's golf swing and putting performance during pre-exercise and simultaneously self-selected music tasks in collegiate golfers in 2020. However, the researchers found that pre-exercise self-selected music, basically music that the participants preferred to hear, lowered anxiety before physical performance. There is another advantage in that the heart rate is better regulated while listening to music during and before and during physical performance. Unfortunately, the study recognized that while there is a chance concurrent music listening can be effective, listening to music during sports competition is prohibited. So, you never see any athletes listening to music while you never see any athletes listening to music while playing like their sport. Never happens. So, unfortunately, no matter a lot of these results won't be super effective for athletes during competition, but obviously you can listen to music while you're running or lifting weights or whatever. Oh, hey, Boywin. Boywin. I don't know if I pronounced your name right, but I like saying Boywin. Boywin. No. To what? You know what? That's fine. We're just going to keep going. Keep moving on. Where were we? Oh, prohibited. The study used a crossover and within subject design with 20 collegiate golfers. Swing performance was assessed by flight distance with carry and roll distance, flight direction, and side spin rates of the ball, so curve. Putting performance was assessed by the number of successful trials, putting goal, and error distance between hole and ball in unsuccessful trials, putting mean. So, I think the swing performance is pretty obvious. They swing it, they calculate the speed, the curvature, the direction, and then the putting performance, they assessed how many times they, putted the ball into the hole and the distance between how far the hole was to the ball every time they putted it. That's how they got their results. Number 3. And you can tell there's a slight shift in how I'm writing these because I usually lead with the final result, but after a while I changed it to where the final result was at the end, and that way it's a little bit easier to remember the final result or the conclusion. Arbinaga, got it, I think. Arbinaga et al. Conducted a study, I forgot study, using a randomized double-blind experimental design with 3 groups. Double-blind basically means the researchers don't know the participants and the participants don't know the researchers. The people who look at all the numbers and they evaluate all these things. They never see the participants perform their tasks. Likewise, the participants never see the researchers perform their tasks. It's double blind. Like, both parties don't know anything about the other party. You have intermediate people who are like testers and they'll they'll record all the numbers and everything, but they're not the ones who do the final analysis. I think that's correct. It's been a little while, but I'm 99% sure that's correct. Anyway, a control group without music, 2 experimental groups that differed in terms of tempo of the music. The researchers found that dart throwing performance and dart throwing with music did not act as a distraction to the performer. However, participants listening to the music with a slower tempo than their heart rate took longer to complete their tasks. Tempos used were between 60 and 105 beats per minute, which were similar to the participants' heart rates. The researchers recruited 56 female volunteers of the average age of 23.38 years of age from classes in the researchers' university. The researchers decided to include females for this trial because the difference between male and female dart throwers is the amount of deliberate practice dedicated to strictly improving. So they only used females to be more consistent with novice dart throwers, basically saying females are more likely to not put in as much practice in dart throwing as the males were. All participants performed in two phases of the study. So basically, you had your you had the phase where you didn't do anything, like you. Oh, I forgot this one a little bit. I wrote this in two parts. So one was like a few weeks ago, and one was more recently. So with the two phases, basically, from my understanding, is that they came by twice to perform. So to put it like more bluntly, so you had your control day, and then you had your two tempos. I mean, music days. The control group. Huh, that's really confusing. I don't remember that study as well as I thought. I have to go back and review that one. So that one's a big my bad. See, this is why when you do your reviews, you should do them all at once because it's very easy to forget what parts meant what. So remember that. If you're doing some kind of big presentation, like add extra detail to your summaries. That way you remember other things. And these get more detailed as I go. But basically, to review the last three studies, um, music didn't really have a big difference on performance, except for. No, I don't want to say that. But it seems like music did not have an effect on physiological outcomes. Basically, there was no physical changes. It wasn't like, oh, well, they did X, Y, or Z harder, faster, or whatever. They were all pretty much the same, but there were some psychological differences, such as the dart throwers listening to slower music took longer to perform the task. That's curious, isn't it? Like, if you listen to slower music, it might slow you down in what you're doing. Fascinating. Anyway, let's go. Oh man, this name. Bayraktudaroglu et al. In 2022 conducted a study to examine the effects of music and visual stimulus on want performance in football players. Football is a football-based game, like football like soccer, not football like American football. Football is a football-based game played on a hard court smaller than a football pitch and mainly indoors. It has similarities to a five-side football and indoor football. It has similarities to five-a-side football and indoor football. So it seems like it's 5-on-5 soccer or football in a small arena and inside. Okay. The researchers found that athletes provided visual feedback with music, 120 to 140 beats per minute, as a warm up program prior to WANT, the Wingate anaerobic test. Found that it can have a positive impact on performance and help athletes achieve peak power. Researchers recruited 17 male football players with 4 years of experience, aged between 18 and 25, and who did physical training 5 days a week. Participants underwent 3 tests with 72 hours between each phase. The first test did not use music, where the participants warmed up and then performed the want. The next session was the same test with music, and the last session was with music and visual feedback 72 hours later. Basically, with music and visual feedback, participants were able to achieve a higher peak power, which is why they just said peak power, because peak is your highest number. So, interesting. There was an effect there, but let's keep going. Jaraya et al. In 2012 set out to assess the effects of listening to music during warm-up on short-term supramaximal performances during the 30-second Wingate test in highly trained athletes. The researchers recruited 12 highly trained male athletes of an average of 20 years of age to perform 3 tests. The first test was following a familiarity day to reduce the influence of practice effect. Basically, that day was to familiarize all the participants in what they were doing, because oftentimes if you go right in and you have several trials, people will get better over time because they are learning what to do. If you familiarize them first, you can reduce that effect, the practice effect. So instead of them getting better because they are learning it better, now you can get a better representation of what the intervention versus the control does. Let's see. 48 hours later, participants underwent a 10-minute warm-up with no music, followed by a 30-second Wingate test. After 48 more hours, participants repeated the test with music during the 10-minute warm-up. The study revealed that peak power and mean power during the Wingate test were higher after the warm-up with music than the warm-up without music. That's 2 that depict an improvement. So we have 3 that say there is no physiological improvement, and 2 that says there is, at least a performance improvement. Meglick and colleagues in 2021 conducted a study to investigate the effects of listening to preferred music versus non-preferred warm-up music on an anaerobic sprint performance in Division I NCAA female athletes, basically your top-level college athletes. Out of the 14 participants, 7 played collegiate-level soccer and 7 played collegiate-level volleyball. Participants performed tests on 2 separate occasions, testing performance with preferred music and non-preferred music. Each testing day included a 3-minute warm-up at 50 watts on an ergometer. So I'm sure everyone has seen an exercise bike. You could set the power, so 50 watts, or they have them, they start working on it, and when they hit 50, it's like, okay, don't go any faster if you can help it. Like, stay right there. With their respective music condition. So one day, non-preferred music, the other day, preferred music. Let's see. After the warm-up, participants would complete 3 15-second Wingate tests. So the normal Wingate test sliced in half and repeated 3 times to get a more accurate number, since you have more trials and you can average them. The researchers found that preferred music tests showed a higher power output and total work over repeated sprints over repeated sprints in collegiate female athletes. So over the course of the tests, it was a higher power output. Motivation was sustainably elevated during the exercise after listening to preferred warm-up music. It can be concluded that athletes can benefit from listening to preferred music during their warm-ups. So that's 3 and 3. 3 that said there's no performance change, 3 that says there is. But this last one is very interesting because it mentions motivation, which will be a key factor in the conclusion of this review. Just a heads up. Nixon et al., not President Nixon, unfortunately, in 2022 investigated the effects of preferred versus non-preferred music volume specifically, in relative output, trial time to completion, and heart rate, as well as rate of perceived exertion, or RPE, and motivation during endurance rowing exercise, and trial time to completion, that's TTC. Nixon et al. Recruited 12 physically active females of the average age of 21 years. For the procedure, participants performed a warm-up rowing 5 minutes at 50% of their age-predicted heart rate. I believe that is... So you take 220 and subtract your age. That's your max heart rate predicted by age. And with their corresponding music condition. During the warm-up, participants rowed 2,000 meters as quickly as possible. Following the warm-up, participants rowed 2,000 meters as quickly as possible. At every minute, heart rate, RPE, 1 to 10 scale, 1 being minimal effort, 10 being maximal effort, and power output were documented, then averaged for analysis. Participants were also measured for time to completion and motivation levels. Participants were blinded to HR, time, and power output, as well as distance. The reason why you blind them to distance is so they don't... you want to minimize pacing, because people will pace regardless. But if they don't know how close or how far they are, they will naturally pace, instead of being like, okay, I'm closer, let me go faster, or I'm at the beginning, let me go slower. You want to change that up. Not change that up. You want to prevent that so you get more consistent numbers. The researchers found that preferred music volume did not result in superior physical performance compared to non-preferred volume. On the other hand, preferred music volume resulted in a higher motivation rating and lower RPE. So basically, the performance didn't change. They did the same thing. However, when music was at a level they preferred, their motivation was higher and they felt like they were doing less work. So it didn't feel as hard. Interesting. So I would call that a psychological benefit. Or you could say a psychophysiological benefit. So we have 3 more. How's everyone doing? How's everyone thinking about this right now? Right now, I mean, this kind of stuff is fascinating to me. How just anything can affect your physical performance. And this isn't just for like jocks and people who like exercising. It would be really cool if someone decided to write a book and there was a music-based magic system, but it affected physical performance. And you could say like, well, like we know in the real world that music may or may not benefit physical performance or whatever. I don't know. It sounds like an interesting idea. And plus, you can extrapolate this to many other things other than like exercise or sports performance. Anyway, let's continue. A little dry. Hold on. Okay. We have 3 more studies and then we'll go to the conclusion and all of that. Bowman et al. In 2020 conducted a study on the effects of listening to preferred and non-preferred warm-up music on upper body resistance exercise performance. The researchers recruited 10 resistance-trained males to perform the procedure on 2 separate visits. The participants performed a warm-up of 5 reps at 40% of their 1 rep max, followed by 3 reps at 60% of the 1 rep max, separated by 3 minutes of rest and followed by another minute of rest. So basically, so you had the warm up, you had 5 minutes of rest. Wait, no. Let me understand this. Oh, this is the warm up. Okay. So the warm up is 5 reps at 40%. Then you had 3 minutes rest. Then you go 3 reps at 60%. Rest, 3 minutes, rest, 3 minutes. And then you had 1 minute of rest while still listening to whatever music condition. And then at the end of this period, all music was ceased. The participants were provided a 100 millimeter line to record their motivation level, 0 millimeters representing zero motivation, 100 extreme motivation. After this, participants completed 2 sets of bench presses of reps to failure at 75% of 1 rep max as explosively as possible. So like instead of like slow grindy reps, they really wanted them to pop them out with good form. Obviously, you don't want anyone hurt. As explosively as possible, separated by 2 minutes of rest. Barbell velocity and RPE were determined during each and after each session. The researchers concluded that preferred warm-up music increases bench press exercise volume and motivation to exercise compared to non-preferred music, but barbell velocity and RPE remained unaltered. So to explain the results of that one, basically the amount they pressed and their motivation were higher, but their barbell velocity, so how fast the bar moved through space, and the rate of exertion did not change. Interesting. Again, that kind of lines up with the last one where they felt like they were doing less. In the rowing one, the last study, they felt like they were doing less, and their motivation was higher. Right? There's a common theme with these two. Motivation was higher, and they felt like they could do more. Interesting. Another study by Ballman. Ballman and colleagues in 2019 examined the effects of listening to preferred or non-preferred music on repeated sprint performance. Participants were 14 physically active males of an average age of 21 years. For the procedure of the study, participants would perform a 5-minute warm-up with corresponding music conditions at which they would prefer I screwed up my punctuation. Let me read the sentence again. For the procedure of the study, participants would preform a 5-minute warm-up with corresponding music conditions at which they would perform 3 15-second Wingate tests separated by 2 minutes of active rests between each bout. Music would not be played during the rest periods. The researchers found that preferred music appears to influence the subjective measures, such as RPE and motivation, rather than performance, despite limitations of the study. I see where I screwed up. I put prefer instead of performed. That's what screwed me up. My bad. But basically, in fact, I'm going to change that right now on stream. Look at me. Look at us. We're just doing things on stream together. Perform. Okay, so basically, this is very similar to the rowing test, where RPE was lower, motivation was higher, but performance didn't really change. So we have 3 of each. We have 3 that says there's no physiological change or performance changes. We have 3 that says there are performance changes. And there's 3 that says there are performance changes, but they're not exactly related to strictly physiological. So we have pretty much a tie between all three. So we have one more study. Let's go and review this, and then we will conclude. And I guess this will be a shorter one. The chat's a little barren today. That's fine. I don't usually stream middle of the day. It's usually earlier, but um, Mahler was streaming earlier, and most of my audience is his audience. So they're gonna watch him over me, and that's fine. But I still wanted to do this today, regardless of how many people are watching live, because I think this is really interesting. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish this up. Greco et al. In 2022 investigated the effects of self-selected and motivational music. So, self-selected means like the person selected it for themselves. Motivational is things that the like music that the researchers thought were motivational in nature. On lower limb, maximal and endurance isometric strength in healthy middle-aged adults. 26 out of the 29 non-resistance trained males of an average age of 50 years. They recruited 29 non-resistance trained males, and 26 of them completed the study. Basically, 3 dropped out. People drop out of studies for any number of reasons. Maybe time constraints, maybe something happened at home, who knows. The participants warmed up on an ergometer at 50 revolutions per minute at a self-selected load between 25 and 75 watts, followed by 10 dynamic half squats. Then participants performed the isometric extension protocol with a modified leg extension machine with their dominant leg. Participants performed 5 3-second maximal effort isometric leg presses with 60 seconds of rest between each bout. Participants conducted this on 3 separate visits with motivational music requirements, self-selected music requirements, and the controls session. The study concluded that self-selected music might increase lower limb isometric strength endurance, but not maximal strength performance in healthy middle-aged men, and improve the affective state or underlying mood without altering RPE. So, that matched up with the last 3. So we have 3 that says there's no performance changes. We have 3 that says there are performance changes, and we have 4 that says there are performance changes, but not entirely. So, what can we conclude from this? Well, if we look at it on the grand scale, 7 out of the 10 reported that there is a change in performance. Interesting. But the 3 that said there was a true change in performance, we can compare to the 4 that says there are some changes in performance. So if we go back, let's scroll up here. So we have reached peak power, and peak power was higher with warm-up music. And of course we have the third one, but that basically says the same thing as well. While the other 4 says there are differences, but all of them said motivation. So what can we extrapolate from here? I believe that looking at all the research I've reviewed, we can extrapolate that music doesn't really change your physiological performance. Rather, it affects your psychophysiological performance. Basically, it affects your mind in a way that can create certain physiological changes. Motivation being the greatest one. In a lot of them, they tested preferred music versus non-preferred music. And what that did is that preferred music in fact, always produced a better effect than non-preferred music. So what does this mean? It means if you're listening to music that you find motivational, that you find inspiring, it can better your mood, and that improvement in mood can produce certain changes in performance. Now, is this something that's super new? Probably not. A lot of people probably expected something like this. I'm sure there are some who are like, oh, so music doesn't actually create a change? It's like, no, not really. But if you are in a better mindset when you're doing tasks, you will usually do them better. So what music does is it puts you in a better headspace to where when you perform exercise or whatever, you will usually do it better. But that's not a true change in performance. That is a change in basically your effort, your mind state. So, psychophysiologically, you should listen to music while you're training or working out. I even believe you can extrapolate this to maybe even video games. I mean, when you play video games and you put on a song that you really like, do you not just play a little bit better? It's not like, oh, well, I'm playing better because I'm listening to music. No, you're just in a better mood. You are in a better mood because of music. It would be really interesting if you took top level, like fighting game players, and you had them, play through a gauntlet between each other. Not between each other, maybe other people. And you check how many they win just with the in-game music, then have them play music that they don't prefer, just self-selected from someone else, and then music that they do like, and see how that would end up. Because I think it would end up a lot like this, where the performance, there's not really a huge change, but there is a little bit of change. And I think this can even be extrapolated to a lot of things. Like if you have a worker, right? Let's say you work in an office and generally the office is quite demotivated. If they all just listen to music, I'm sure they will do their job better because they're in a better mood. The reason why I chose exercise is because, well, A, I like this topic, but B, it's just physical performance. You can extrapolate this to a lot of things. So, what does that mean? So, what's the conclusion here? The conclusion here is that music doesn't change what you can do physically. Well, I mean, I guess it does. It doesn't change you physiologically. It doesn't change how your body works. It improves your mood. It gives you more motivation. And when you do things, you might feel like it takes less effort to do things. You might be able to push yourself a little bit longer, which is, all of those things are important. Like if you're a bodybuilder, every rep counts. If you do 5 reps as opposed to 7, the 7 might be better. Now, of course, it depends on proximity to failure. But if you can get like a little bit closer to failure, I feel like okay, I can push a little bit harder. That's gonna make a difference. It might not make a huge difference right now, but if you add up 1% and you keep adding up that 1%, you make a big difference in the end. That is a 100% difference. I mean, not really, right? Because that 1% would be relative. It would probably be much higher. Because, like, if you took, like, 100 and you took 1% of 100, that's 1. Then you took 1% of 101, that's 1.001. And then you kept doing that. The number's going to, like, increase slowly. And eventually, it will be a much bigger number. But that's beside the point. The point is, and I don't mean, and they will stack. So it's like 1% plus 1.01%, and then 1.001. Those are all going to stack, and then eventually you'll become a much bigger number in the end. Yeah, that was the. I think that math was correct. It might be a little bit off, but yeah, that was my podcast. it's a bit short today. I didn't have a chat to bounce off of, but that's okay. Uh, you know, I like doing these. I don't really do them for the chat. I do them because I like them. I don't want to do them at a time where people want to watch other things. I try to do them at a time where I have some chat to bounce off of, but it's fine. So yeah, next one. This will be uploaded a bit later on my Substack. Reading it out loud, I found a lot more mistakes than I would like, so it might be a little while before it's up. The next one, I'm not sure what to do. If you have any ideas, throw them in the comments. I really like these, and I am slowly moving towards doing them more often. Um, Again, I have a day job. It's hard to just work on these all the time because I will not make an episode usually. There are some topics I would feel comfortable just talking about without research. But for the research episodes, I really don't want to. I don't want to just make them. You know, like I want to know what I'm saying. I like to do the research behind it. I like to write the paper. So you could check all my sources if you want to, and if I got something wrong, I'll be happy to if you cite that and I can go check and be like, oh shit, I got it wrong. But yeah, we're working through this. I know I changed the format again, but it I need to figure out what works well, and I'm not sure what works well yet. So yeah, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you watching. Um, yeah, have a wonderful day. I hope you learned something. If you ever haven't struggled, if you are ever struggling with something that is, physically exhausting, pop on some music. You'll probably do a little bit better. Anyway, that's all from me. Um, yeah, this was awesome. This was fun. Next time, I don't know what I'm going to do. It might be a nutrition topic. It might be more exercise. It might just be a training topic or maybe mental health like the burnout one. Who really knows? So, yeah, we will just keep rolling on. I don't know when the episode will be. Um, I have other channels. One's a silly meme channel. One has old Monster Hunter videos. I might start that up again if I ever get a capture card. Yeah, so that's everything. Have a good one. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. And I guess I should say keep swimming since this is a shark-based channel. But that seems cheesy. Anyway, so I don't know how to end these. So,